Got a couple camcorders shipped in, and these could very well be the worst camcorders I've ever seen or worked on. And when you see the inside of these things, I think you will agree. I think I'm going to limit myself to Sony's going forward. I was sent in two cameras, Sanyo, to look at. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do anything on them. One's a high band camera, high 8 of course, and the other one is just a regular 8mm. Unfortunately, the fellow that sent them in neglected to send me the AV cable, so I'm going to have to come up with a means to try to probe this. That's going to be interesting. Stick some wires in, I guess, to try to probe the outputs so I can make up a cable to try to get a picture off one of these units, or both of these units. But we're going to take a look at it and see whether I can make any sense of these. I have no idea what's wrong with them. Apparently they don't work. I don't even know if we're going to be able to get this running, because this is going to be full of surface mounted capacitors, and we all know how I feel about surface mounted caps. I won't do them, and the reason I won't do them is because you start changing surface mounted caps when the circuit board has already had the electrolytic leak all over them, and they might work for a week or 2 or 3, and then they're going to fail again. And I can say that with confidence because every unit that I replaced the caps on did not last, and that was 30 years ago. I replaced the caps, every cap, using my air station, I might add, that I had when I worked in the business on a CCD V5000, and it ran for a while and then started acting up again because the multi-layer circuit board had the corrosive electrolytic leak into the internal layers and start causing intermittent failures, and that's the problem. That's why you don't change caps on cameras, and I can't stress that enough. If anybody tells you they're going to change the caps on the camera and your camera's going to work, they're lying. It might work for a while, but it's not going to last. Guaranteed. Because once those caps leak, it's going to soak into a 4-layer board, which is what most of the cameras have, is a 4-layer board. And it's going to do internal damage, and there's no way to repair that. Anyway, let's see if we can power these up and see if I can get a picture off of either of them and see what we can do to make them work. So, probing the connector, I've come up with I haven't even checked for audio, but for video, top center and on the right side in the middle. That gives me video off of the camera. Not great video, but it works. I got video from the camera. So we know that the camera section is putting out video, but this one here, the complaint is it doesn't play back. I just want to try to make this thing play back. So I put it in play, and that's what the picture looks like. I'll tell you right now where this fault is going to be. This is going to be capacitors. Definitely, most certainly, 100% guaranteed this has got leaking capacitors. That's where our fault is going to be on this one. So I'll pull it apart, but I'm not going to. Even at this point, I'm not going to hold my breath that this is going to work. You can see the caps are bad here too. Looks like the belt is worn out for the zoom lens too. Can zoom it manually, but the little belt for the zoom lens is going to be worn out. But that's the least of the concerns. The more bigger concern is this thing going to be able to be repaired? But we'll try. See what we can come up with. So here's our pin out here. The orange wire is the video out, and the gray wire is the ground. Video, ground, and some of these other ones would be for audio as well, but that's what I've had to do because the fellow that owns this forgot to ship the cable to connect it to a TV, so I had to make my own. He sent me a pin out as well, but the pin out he gave me was, this is what he sent me, his little diagram. He showed audio out, ground there, and video out. I don't know how he came up with that because video out is actually the top one, and the ground is that one. Anyway. I will say that back in the 90s or 80s when these cameras were around, if one of these came in for service, in a condition like this, showing symptoms that the caps were bad, it would have never even been repaired back then, even when these were still considered to be, relatively young in its life, just because of the issues that I've talked about before, the circuit boards getting corrosion from the leaky caps. And Sanyo, it's always never considered to be a really high-end brand, so if someone walked into the shop with one of these cameras, it probably wouldn't even have been left. Although I do remember working on some similar cameras like this over the years. Not too many though, just because the majority of them would have never been repaired. They would have just been abandoned and replaced with a Sony. The fellow that owns this one, and I won't identify who he is, and I'm sure he probably won't chime in. Maybe he will, but he put a declared value on the two broken cameras, and it ended up costing him, I think it was around $50 in taxes, because when used products come in to Canada, items coming in for repair don't have any taxes or duties assessed because they're going back, but items coming in for repair don't have a declared value put on them. And when you declare something being worth $200, the tax man sees that as being like a $200 purchase in a store, and you pay tax. So he's already put a fair bit of money into just getting these cameras here, and he'll be having to deal with the shipping to get them back, because he wants them back even if they're not repairable, which is fine, because I certainly don't want them. I get people that leave me cameras all the time to get tapes out of them, but when we get the tapes out of them, they just tell me to throw them out. Some of them make it onto my channel to be taken apart, but a lot of them just go in the scrap heap and they're tossed. It's got a plug on it. It doesn't even have a plug. Yeah, it shows how bad this design is. There's not even a plug to unplug the viewfinder. Right? The wires themselves go right in. There's the viewfinder plug down here. So now we can remove the viewfinder. And here's our look at all the caps in there. I'm sure these are all leaking. It's full of surface mounted caps. This piece has to come out. No. Yes, that's attached. As you can clearly see, this was not designed like a Sony. because I could be into a Sony and had it back together in less time than it's taken me to get just to this point. And I don't even have the deck out yet. There's hidden screws all over the place that have to come out on this. I think this is going to be a lost cause, this camera. I just don't think it's going to be economical. Well, it's not economical to repair. I can tell you that part right now. But I mean, just to get the deck out of this unit, the camera has not been running the entire time I've been on this. I've been on it now for probably close to an hour, fiddling around trying to figure out what screws to take out just to try to get the deck out. There's two circuit boards on the side here, and there's capacitors mounted on both sides facing in to it. I can see them down through here, and that's where we're going to have problems on this unit, is they're going to be bad. More screws, and I've got the camera block separated, but I'm still no closer to getting the tape block out because there are still screws holding this thing in place. The cover doesn't come off. The chassis itself is screwed down to the cover, and obviously there's another screw in here holding it somewhere. I'm looking for it. I haven't been able to find it yet. It's an elusive screw holding this thing in place. That elusive screw is right here. Okay, now what lifts out on this? Well, it doesn't, because there's a circuit board in here that's still in place. Oh, I gotta take off another cover, it looks like. Right here, I gotta take a screw off from the inside here. And then that will definitely not designed to be repaired, this one, that's for sure. This is one that was designed to be put together, and when it broke, thrown away, because it's not designed to be taken apart. I see a fuse buried down here. I wonder if that fuse ever got replaced on one of these cameras. I think not. I think if that fuse blew, this thing was thrown out. This cover should pop out. Oh, there's another screw up here. I was wondering why the cover wasn't coming out. There's another hidden screw right here. Now this cover should lift out to reveal a circuit board that probably has more screws in it than holding the circuit board in place, which needs to come out. Or does it? Or is it just the cover that was holding it in place? It's got the, I guess this is the external microphone. That has to come out and be unplugged. This is the main board that goes all the way across the back, and something's holding that in place as well. I think it's is it the mic jack? Looks to be the microphone jack. Yeah, okay. Oh boy. So this is the unit, now that it's all in pieces. Like, what the hell is this? Like, okay, that's a circuit board it doesn't unplug. It's connected by pins. Look at this. You want to talk about stupid designs. They got a little circuit board here just floating in free space that's just held in place by 2 rows of pins that are soldered down to the other board. And you got this board here, and then there's another board here, and another board here. Loaded full of these surface mounted caps, and there's caps on this board as well, and I think there's some more on the other board, because you see there's some right down here. If we look, there's more down right on this board here. This is where the fault is going to be on this camera, is all these surface mounted caps are bad, and they're all going to be bad. I'm going to try to fire this thing up when it's apart. See if I can get this thing to turn on. There, it's got power, and I got video from the camera. I just want to load up the tape here and just see what it does while it's apart. It's going to be challenging. Look at the mechanism on this one, if we can see it. Can we see it load? Try to zoom the camera in here a bit. You can see how the mechanism loads on this one. It's a little different than a lot of them. It's more like one of the TR series. It's got the subcompact drum on this. I got a scrambled picture. I just want to see whether I can probe this and see where the video is being lost. It's likely one of these ones back here, but it's hard to tell. There's one of these is a servo board. This might be the servo board. This one might be the video board here. So I'm just going to get my scope out and see if I can see where I'm losing the video. The lines in the picture almost looks like a DC to DC converter problem, but we'll see what I can see with my scope. My silly scope, as they say. So I'm just going to probe a couple of the caps here. This one here looks like it's been leaking, so this is one that kind of looks like this one might be. I see some video here, and I'm just going to try just bridging this one. See whether looks like a 10 microfarad. I'm going to try bridging it and just see whether my video pops on. It's certainly not going to be worth recapping the entire board, that's for sure. I'd say that much with good confidence. This would not be worth doing that. And there's only about 30 caps or so on here, but still, the amount of work required to take this thing all apart and change them all, and the fact that they've been leaking. Well, I've tried bridging some of these ones out and to no avail. Nothing's changing. However, there are more on the back side of this board that we haven't seen. Like if I take off the power, if I remove this board, I think it just plugs in. Maybe it clips in. Is it connected? It should unplug from the other board. There's some plugs on here. You'll see that there are it's a double-sided board, and there are more of these bloody nasty caps on the other side. I gotta take out these 2 screws. I'm ready to wash my hands of this one, by the way. At this point, I've spent too much time on here at this point already, and I'm no closer to finding out where the problem is, short of replacing every cap on the board. You see there's more of them on this side. That IC looks like it's been changed at one point. Looks like it's got fresh flux on it. Actually, it looks like there's a lot of work done on this board. It looks like someone's tried to repair this, because a lot of these caps look like they've been changed. Like if you look at the solder, it's shiny on a lot of these ones. I think someone's tried to fix this in the past, because there's lots of fresh flux. It looks like this IC down here has been changed, so we get a close-up of it. I think someone's worked on this thing in the past. Look, see this? See how shiny? You can see all the flux that's been left behind. Someone's changed that IC out, it looks like. These caps look like they've all been changed. In fact, a lot of them look like they've been changed. I think someone's attempted to repair this and they gave up on it. Get the ESR meter out. We'll just check some of the ESR on some of these caps and see how bad they are. Yeah, as I thought, a lot of these have been changed. Like these look like they've all been changed out before. And if we look at the readings on the meter, like 1.7, 1.5, these have been changed. A lot of these, not all of them, but a lot of them have been changed out. That looks like it could be bad, that one. No, wait a second. What did I get? I wasn't getting a reading there for a sec, but just wasn't making a connection. Two ohms. 2.4 ohms. Now looks like it could be open. 1.5. 2.2. So look, a lot of these look like they've been done. They've been changed out. I mean, the solder looks fresh on some of them, but there's a few of them that are measuring a little bit off. But the fact that somebody's been into this unit before and worked on it before, pretty good indication that someone's given up on this. If you look down here, you can see all the work that someone else has done on this one in the past. All these parts down here, like you can see, these have all been changed out. Someone's done a lot of work on here to try to get this thing going. You can see fresh solder flux in here. I think I'm going to throw this together at this point. Perhaps as a display piece, you know, just to put on display, because it's an old model. But I wouldn't spend any money on fixing something like this, because even once it's fixed, it's not going to last. And that's what's happened, is somebody's put a lot of parts into this thing and it's not working again. And that's the real risk, is you spend money, you change a bunch of parts, and it works, and then the next time you go to turn it on, it doesn't work. So I'm just going to throw this one together. We'll move on to the next one, but I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to be just the same as this. It's going to be another lost cause, as most of these cameras are, and I don't normally even accept them. I tell people no. Like, I get requests for like Sony F30s and F40s, and I say no, I'm not even going to touch it. I'm not going to look at it, because I know already going in, as I explained to this guy before it was even sent to me, this is not going to be worth fixing, but he sent it anyway. So we've looked at it. Now you guys have seen what's inside one. Let's see if I can get it back together. Now I forgot to put a bracket in. I'm going to have to probably pull the camera section apart again to get this bracket in, because there's this bracket that goes across the bottom and another one that goes across the top that came out when I lifted it apart. So this is all going to have to go back in. These two bracket pieces have to go in here. They go in like this. Jesus. Bad design. Real bad design. And just so you know, the longer one is the one on the bottom. The shorter one is the one on the top. Not like those nice Sonys that have got the arrow mark screws to tell you which screws you got to remove to take anything apart. Now this one here, you just have to start removing screws. Man. two more in the back here that go in down here. Another one that goes through this hole in the circuit board. As you can see, if there's a tape jammed in it, you can't take the chassis out because you gotta take the tape out first. I tell you, putting this thing back together is as bad as taking it apart. Everything has to go back together in a specific sequence, otherwise it won't go together. I'll plug this plug back in. And there are brackets that hold things together. There, that goes back like that, and then that, I guess, tucks in here. And then this cover has to go back in place, and it kind of goes, it fits in between the viewfinder and the and a cabinet. Of course, we got to get the wires that are poking out here in the way. Put them back in. And then there's a screw that goes down through here that holds this cover in place. Now I remember why we refused to service Sanyo camcorders when I worked in the business. Like, we wouldn't even let these things come in the door. Now it's all coming back to me now as to why we refused to work on these stupid things. I got the other one here to take a peek at, but I'm not going to hold my breath that I'm going to get anywhere on it either. We'll do it just for shits and giggles, as they say. But I've lost my shirt on this because I'm not making any money on this one. Should have stuck to my guns and just said no. I feel bad though, because the guy that sent it, let's just say he put a declared value on it and got charged a whole bunch of tax, which he won't get back, even though it's going to be exported. I guess he could try to file a claim with the government, but you know, governments generally don't like to refund taxes. This is all broken here on the bottom too, the tripod holder. It's all broken. So I got this one back together. All the screws back in. Yeah, this is just not worth fixing, this one. It's just too old. Too old. Might be a Japanese, you know, VEM S2 is the model number. It was a Japanese model, but still, it's might be okay as a display piece, but it certainly is not going to be a functional piece. Not economically anyway. I mean, if someone wanted to spend $1,000 to rebuild it, then maybe, but it's just not worth it. This is the second one from the same fellow. This is a VMH100 High 8 camera. This one here, he says that the camera section doesn't work. He knows that. Let's see what does and what doesn't work on this one. I have a feeling that we're going to be in the same boat as the previous one before I even get into it. But we'll plug it in and see what it does. Yeah, the camera section on this one is totally shot. It's going to be capacitors on this one as well, for sure. You can tell that he says it's the CCD that's bad. It's not the CCD that's bad, it's the capacitors in the camera section. There's what comes off the camera itself. Just a scrambled screen because the capacitors are all leaking in the camera circuit. So this one plays a picture in black and white. Yeah, that noise you see there is coming from my monitor. This is going to be capacitors in the playback circuit on this one. In the color circuit. We'll pop the side off this one and see if this one's any easier to get at than the other. I don't suspect that this one's going to be any easier to work on than the last one, which was an absolute joke. And it's going to be caps that are bad in here as well. And like the other one, it's I don't think it's worth fixing. Just from seeing what I see so far. This one is another one that's going to be a lost cause, but we'll take it apart and waste some time on it, and that's basically what this is. It's a waste of time because, you know, this is all that I've accomplished today all day working on stuff in here. I've been working on this stuff now for a couple of hours, and the time I've wasted on these is time I could have been working on stuff that's actually worth fixing. Like this beauty of an amplifier that'll be coming up soon. And it's my fault too, because when I was asked if I could look at it, I said, sure, I can look at it. Probably not worth fixing, but I can look at it. I should have said right off the bat, no, I don't want to work on it. I don't want to look at this stuff. That's what I should have said, was no. It's one thing if it's a more modern Sony camera, that at least the Sonys are somewhat easy to open up and work on. But Canon and Sanyo and the other brands that are not so easy to get into, you spend more time disassembling them and putting them together. And of this vintage, they're all going to be full of leaking capacitors. We'll pull this one apart quickly and just see whether I can actually even get into it without having to do as much disassembly as that last one, because that last one was just horrible to get into. And this one is appearing to be not much better. Oh, come on. What else has got to come apart on this? Okay, this is a different design. Different mechanism on this one. Look at the way that the tape threads on this one. It's completely different. This is almost like a U loading pattern. The capstan is way over here, so the tape is actually pulled all the way around. It's like the original 8mm design. It's a U loading as opposed to an M loading system. This is like the original Sony design. Sony ones did this too, the original camcorders. But here we got leaking caps here. You can see them. All these ones are going to be bad. Every one of them are going to be bad in here. I can't even get the deck out. Never mind. You know, this is the problem with these ones is all the old cameras like this. Sony weren't much better, but they were like this too. Just to do anything, you had to disassemble the entire camera just to get anything out. Of course, you got to unplug things, so once you remove plugs, it's not going to operate. I had to undo a plug here, but I got a board back here that's full of leaking caps. You can see them already. It's leaking. Have to get out this backboard because there's one screw hidden down here. I get a sneaking suspicion I'm just going to be putting this thing back together because I don't think this thing's going to be repairable at all. But we'll take a look here now that I've got into it. Looks like someone's replaced that fuse at some point. That does not look original. Down here. If you look on this board here, you can see where there's corrosion leaking out of this capacitor here, and there's some more over here. Using modules. There's more corrosion up here, you can see it. This one's got a chroma problem. I'm sure it's caps, but it could be the color IC. These ones here look like they're leaking as well. Definitely these ones on the back of this. This is the YC board is over here. This is going to be our. It's going to be our audio, our video processing. More caps on the back side of this board. Evidence of leakage on this one, and this one over here. Looks like it's been leaking too. This is the audio circuit. This one. There's another board sandwiched in behind here. Yeah, I think this is again a lost cause. I'm going to throw this together. This is just. There's just too much wrong with this camera. You know, besides the fact that the camera section itself, all the caps up in here are also bad, and probably in the DC to DC converter as well, it's bad. It's just they're not worth fixing. And I try to convey that to people that all these cameras out there are not worth fixing, and yet people want to still try to get these old relics running for whatever reason. So I'm going to cut my losses on this one and let the guy know that both of these are not worth repairing for any cost, right? I mean, everything can be fixed if you want to put the money into it, but it's just good money after bad, and I mean, just too much time's been wasted just taking this thing apart. I only did this so you guys see the inside of it, basically. Show you guys what the guts look like. Mechanism's kind of cool on this one, the way it threads up, but it's the basic original 8mm design that was brought out before they went to the M loading. This is how all the old 8mm threaded the tape this way. And that's about the only thing that's cool on this, is the fact that it uses the original loading ring. The tape gets pulled out. The tape gets pulled out one direction this way, and then this whole entire ring spins around and pulls the tape around and under here, and then over to the capstan shaft here. Here's the pinch roller, goes all the way around. So the tape is pulled out by this guide. This one comes up like this. This guide pulls up this way, and then this whole entire arm. This one pulls out this way. So when the tape first goes in, this guide pulls up to here, so it pulls the tape up like that, and then this guide here pulls up to there, which pulls the tape out this side, and then the arm goes around and it pulls it all the way around the rest of the way over to here. That's about the only thing that's cool about this one, is the way it threads the tape, which was the way that the original 8mm decks and cameras threaded the tape. Well, this one's back together. I've only been working on this all day. Now it's like 7 o'clock at night. I've been on these cameras all day, and I've accomplished nothing else other than take apart these cameras. And this is why I don't want to work on any cameras other than late model Sonys. I won't work on the early model Sonys either, like the F series and the V series. Nope, sorry, don't want to work on them. I'll look at the late series, the later series, the B chassis, even some of the A chassis, mostly the B chassis, Digital 8, that type of stuff. The later generation are not too bad to work on, but these ones here, horrible. Now I remember why I never worked on these when I worked in the shop. We just told people to toss them out. Anyway, I got to send this one back to the guy that owns this because he wants these old cameras back. So I got to arrange to ship them back to them in the same condition that I received them, broken. Thanks for watching.